Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I am your host, Joe Zolo. It is week 2 of our Stars of Tomorrow series, and this week we're talking running backs. Last week we talked quarterbacks, but this week talking the incoming rookie class of running backs, and who better to do it with than the fellow lover of running backs himself, Mr. Jon Helmkamp. John, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Yeah, dandy.
Always good time. I remember, actually, if I'm not mistaken, the very first time we had John on our show was last year's Running Back Stars of Tomorrow series.
It was. That was the first time that I was here, where I got to gush poetically about Jonathan Taylor.
Yep.
And that was my first time on. So, how the year has gone for all of us. It's been a wild ride.
John had to up his pants size for that first episode. Now I think it's...
I did. Actually, the pants were just off. Like, there was nothing from here down.
Yeah,
just
in case.
The pants are off. Yeah, it's great.
When the name Jonathan Taylor popped up, his camera weirdly tipped back for just a couple seconds. Then it came right back down to earth. But now we get to find out who is this year's Jonathan Taylor, according to John, which I don't know if there is, because John was gung-ho on Jonathan Taylor, but I'm excited to find out. Joining me always, Josh and Ryan. Blah, blah, blah. Don't really have to.
The throwaways.
Yeah, the throwaways. Who cares, right? Who cares? But this is actually John's first time on the show since he became a writer with Deadspin, I believe, correct?
Yeah,
boom.
That's true.
Big
he
time.
was, John, you were literally just finishing up the deal the last time you were on with us because you told us after the show, you're like, you can't say anything.
Yeah, it was, last time I was on was like...
Wasn't it the Seahawks preview? Like in July or something?
No, we had him on during the season. One of the weeks of the season.
No, it was like late September or early October, probably, that I was on. Probably October, because I formally got the job offer early November.
Okay.
And then I moved to Chicago November 16th. So I think it was like actually late October.
Yeah, just one of the weekly preview shows.
Yeah.
We have John on too much.
It was actually because I asked John on that show it was right before Jonathan Taylor broke out second half, because I was like, John, what do we do? You talked me into this guy. Now what do we do?
Yeah.
Thank God we held on.
Those were scary times, man. Those were, I'm not going to lie. It was sweating a little for a few weeks. But
he looked pretty good.
Faith prevailed, and now look at him.
Yes.
There you go.
All right, we'll start here with John's top running backs for the 2020 class. Then we're going to break down ideal landing spots for some of these guys. So we'll start with number 1 going through 12. 1, Javonte Williams from UNC, Naji Harris from Alabama, Michael Carter from the University of North Carolina as well, Kylin Hill, that how you pronounce his name? Kylin Hill, number 4 from Mississippi State, Travis Etienne from the Clemson Tigers, Kenneth Gainwell from Memphis, Trey Sermon from Ohio State, Jermar Jefferson, not to be confused with, isn't there a Jamar
There's
Jefferson?
There's a Jamar Jefferson. He's like a DB, I think, out of somewhere. I can't remember. Yeah,
this is Jermar Jefferson from Oregon State. Go Beavers. Chuba Hubbard from Oklahoma State, Elijah Mitchell from Louisiana, Jarrett Patterson from Buffalo, and Ramondre Stevenson, great name, from Oklahoma. And then to give some love to our buddy, Zach Smith, his running back rankings, Naji Harris, Travis Etienne, Javonte Williams, Trey Sermon, Kenneth Gainwell, Jermar Jefferson, Michael Carter, Chuba Hubbard, Kylin Hill, Ramondre Stevenson, Javian Hawkins. These are just unbelievable names. I love these names. And Elijah Mitchell. I'm going to, in the 4th or 5th round of the Dynasty Draft, Ramondre Stevenson is my pick. There.
You're just going for names.
Solely based off name.
I don't think he'll make it that far.
I'm already upset about having to extend the size of the column that I put him in because of how long his damn name is.
I had to do that like 5 different times. Yep. Hit Ramondre. And I just keep so now I'm like almost bitter at the dude just because of how much he messed up my spreadsheets.
That's hilarious.
Don't you hate guys that just fuck with your formatting? Like,
Exactly.
What the hell? Why'd you have to be named that? But all right, let's start here with the consensus top 3, but it's not in John's top 3. It's Naji Harris.
That's why I said consensus.
And that's why
I knew John was going to argue this point.
I can't have too many arguments with John today because I am not as educated with running backs that don't mean a thing to me until they put on an NFL jersey. but I'll find a way to work.
That's why we bring John on the show, because I'm pretty sure the three of us are that.
Yep. And John is also that and more. But it's Naji Harris, Travis Etienne, and Javonte Williams are mostly your, consensus top three. But I am reading this straight from the show doc and what Josh typed. Go ahead, John, -- tell us why you hate Travis Etienne. I just want to put that out there, that I didn't write that. Josh did. I don't want that. Don't shoot the messenger. Shoot the guy who wrote it, and that's Josh. So, John, we'll start with Travis Etienne. Why do you hate him?
All right, so I'll start with Travis Etienne. And here's the deal. Both with Travis Etienne on the wide receiver side of things, Jamar Chase. Two guys that are very consensus near the very top of their position or the top of their position by most people. I was very unimpressed by what I was going through film studies of. So I started off just basically loathing the fact that these guys exist. And then I've kind of calmed myself down and come a little bit back more to a rational position. So with Travis Etienne, I think one of the things that I did early was I was too harsh, and on Jamar Chase both. I was too harsh on the flaws that I did see without kind of weighing the positives that they have. So I criticized both of them really, really heavily, and I could see both of them kind of sneaking back up a spot or two in my rankings, especially after the draft. But for right now, I'm going to keep it where it is on Travis Etienne at 5. Travis Etienne, to me, incredibly productive college career. You can't argue that. What he did at Clemson was outstanding. He upped his receiving numbers over all 3 years after his freshman year, literally being quoted saying he was scared to catch football. And now he had 47 catches or something like that, if I remember correctly. So obviously he's not scared to catch football anymore. He's a good receiving back, and he's fast. But you know what? So is Chuba Hubbard. Those guys have similar skill sets in those two areas, in my opinion. While Travis Etienne has essentially no lateral agility to me. He turns like a Freightliner when you're watching the film. He is great if he has a straight line to run in, and trust me, he will run straight without wavering from that heading at all, even if there's a defender. It is, I'm going to go as straight, as fast as I can until I hit the ground. I also saw a lot of times that he didn't embrace contact. He would do this weird, breakdown of his feet, chop his feet and then, turn away from contact, every time he would get hit. And it was really bizarre and inefficient and had me scared for an ACL, every single time that he was getting tackled. So there were some weaknesses in Travis Etienne's game. His pros, though, are very, very good pros. But here's one of the things that I'm really concerned about with Etienne. His hallmark throughout his college career was, but he's super fast. That was what everyone hung their hat on. He's track star speed. He's so fast, he's going to outrun everybody. Well, the dude put on 10 pounds going into his pro day and ran slower than we thought he was going to.
Exactly.
So I'm like, hold on a second. If you mean to tell me that one of the only, in my opinion, elite traits that this guy possesses has now diminished in its effectiveness, that really concerns me. Because if he had stayed at 205 and ran a 4.38 40, okay, I expected him to do that. I expected him to be this blazing fast guy, but instead he's now at 212 or 215, somewhere in that range. I can't remember the exact number at his pro day.
Player Profiler has him at 215.
Yeah, and then he ran a 4.44, I think it was, or something like that, adjusted. It was a 4.40, I think, according to their clock, but all of these times this year are a little bit, fast on the trigger. So I don't know. It's tough for me because I thought that he would have been better at 205 and being able to literally run away from everybody than at 215 and trying to be more of a physical back when that's not his strength. I would have liked him to just continue to play to his strength more. So we'll see. The dude's obviously going to get great draft capital, potentially first round, if not for sure second round. No way.
I don't think there's any way he falls past the second.
There's no way. He'll probably be early second round at worst. And one of the first two running backs drafted most likely. So if he goes to a handful of very specific schemes that are zone based and where they get their running backs into space, and then allow them to move, then I could see me bumping him up a little bit. But if he goes to like the Jets, which is a common thing, people are projecting early second round pick to the Jets. Oh boy. No, I'm not happy about that whatsoever. And I probably won't move him from where I have him right now.
All right. I got to ask why, because I will say, I think he's a perfect fit for the Jets, and I'll explain in a second, but I'm just curious. We know the state of their team, but they're bringing in Mike LaFleur, who, if he's right out of that Shanahan tree, they're going to run more zone schemes, which, to your point, is right up Travis Etienne's alley.
I agree with that. I just don't think that they have the personnel to effectively do it. I agree that schematically that's what they're going to want to do, but it might take 2 or 3 years for them to get an offensive line there that can actually do it effectively and be able to create space for him. So it's very different. And while they're going to run a zone scheme, a New York Jets zone scheme compared to the San Francisco zone scheme are going to be 2 entirely different levels of effectiveness. And I just don't think that they're going to have the personnel or the outside threats to create a whole bunch of space underneath for the running back. So yeah, I'm worried if that's where he goes, but I kind of have it in my mind that I'm fine moving players within their own tier based on landing spot. And I think 3 to 5 or maybe 3 to 6 for me is a tier. Okay. So I could potentially get him up to 3 or 4 if I like where he lands after the draft.
So, and obviously you didn't do this last year, but if he's the first running back taken, it's not going to be a CEH situation where he's shooting up to number 1 on your board or even close to that, right?
No, I can't get him above Javonte or Naji. There's no way. I kind of don't even care where those two go. I don't think I can get ETN in front of those 2 guys. 3 is the absolute ceiling for where I'll end up with him in my rankings.
I think that's fair. I think Naji Harris is my favorite, just based off size and speed.
He's a beast.
He's ridiculous. But so no on the Jets, which is exactly where Ryan and Josh said that they would like to see.
As soon as he said that, I was like, oh, God. Well, I went and looked to see if you put your landing spot in, John, because I'm like, I wonder where John wants him, and you didn't put it in. But then you go, the second I looked at it, you're like, if he ends up on the Jets, I was like, oh, God.
Literally, of all 32 teams that you guys could have picked from, you picked the Jets, the one team that John does not want to see him on. And rightfully so, yes, they're running the scheme that John talked about, but when you can only run the ball off tackle with Mekhi Becton, the defense is going to pick up on that pretty fast.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll throw in on a fantasy standpoint is the Jets should still have to throw the ball a ton, and he's going to be better than Coleman and P. Ryan right out of the gate as a receiver. So,
true.
Agreed. Yeah, and that's kind of my point with ETN. I mean, you're looking at him from a PPR perspective, I think, in his rookie year. And as they use this draft capital to add more offensive linemen, and this is a good offensive line class. I think it's deep in the trenches, and there are some really good tackles. I think there's maybe 2 elite tackles, but there's solid depth here. And again, if you're running a certain scheme, sometimes all you need with offensive linemen is guys that can move their feet within the scheme. We see it all the time with defenders too.
If the Jets can somehow come away with Quinn Miners, the offensive lineman from Wisconsin Whitewater, I don't know if you guys are familiar with him.
Oh, he's a mauler.
Q's amazing. So he's a mauler, but he also tested off the charts in terms of all of his athleticism numbers. It was 97th percentile 3-cone, 99 speed. Everything was outstanding. And he's so fun and he's so cool. And he tore it up during Senior Bowl week wearing his crop top while doing the workouts. And it was absolutely phenomenal. So a D3 guy, but he's probably going to go round 2. He would be good for them because he can move and he can get out into space. And I think that he would be a good fit for the Jets. But I totally forgot that we were supposed to do landing spots. But off the top of my head, if somehow, some way he goes to Arizona, I would like that a lot. If he goes to San Francisco, obviously not with their first round pick, he would have to fall to 43 overall. But I think that is a realistic kind of draft capital situation for him. So if he's there at 43 and he can go to the Niners, that's that's the dream. Like, that's the one spot where I would be like, okay, like, cool. Now he looks like he could be potentially in that, top tier of running backs this year. But yeah, kind of those two I like a lot. I'm kind of looking to see if there's another one in that draft capital range that I would really be in love with. He doesn't fit what Atlanta's going to want to do.
No. Atlanta wants a bigger back.
Yeah, Javonte Williams would be great there. Spoiler alert. Yeah, probably those two. I mean, that's about it. I wouldn't hate the Jets, but I would be cautious about like a slow year one. You know what I mean? Like, it might take them some time to get that thing going how they want it to and get the personnel in place, and they're going to have a rookie quarterback and all that stuff. So it might take a little bit of time to kind of see the dividends there.
Something to add in that I completely forgot about is the Jets have a second first-round pick this year at 23 from John's beloved Seattle Seahawks, which good. The Seahawks don't know how to use first-round picks, so it was fantastic job.
That was what I said when we traded for
Jamal Adams.
Perfect. Because I was like, well, fine. We don't use them anyways. Yeah. Screw it. Might as well.
LJ Collier. I mean, just absolutely big first-round picks. Where is he out of?
TCU.
Edge flex out of TCU. Go Horned Frogs. LJ Collier.
And then Jordan Brooks last year, linebacker out of Texas A&M. What is it with Texas linebackers?
I thought it was Texas Tech.
Texas Tech.
Or Texas Tech. I'm sorry. You're right.
Yeah.
One of the other Texas schools.
Apparently, the Seattle Seahawks scouting team only lives in northern Texas. That's the only spot that they scout. Is Fort Worth and Lubbock. Those are the only two areas they send scouts to.
No time for anything else.
Yeah, no time for anything else. No,
could have had Patrick Queen, but no, he went with the next pick to Baltimore. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, no. Why would you want a guy from one of the best college football teams ever when you could have a guy from Texas Tech?
No, here's the thing. You can still have the guy from Texas Tech 2 rounds later.
Yeah, exactly.
But you got him in the first to make sure you got him.
To make sure you also overpaid for him.
Lock in that 5th-year option, man. You know how important that is.
Haven't the last 3 first-round picks for the Seahawks have been San Diego State, TCU, and Texas Tech?
Yes,
Texas
that is
Tech.
correct. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow, really big, really swinging for the fence is Seattle up there.
Real quick, let me. I do want to kind of shine a light on why I really like Etienne in the Jets and why I think he'll actually land there. What some people don't know about Joe Douglas, and I've come across this from his time with Philly and Howie Roseman in the front office, he values college production. Like, that's why they went with Derek Barnett in the first round out of Tennessee. That's why they went with Donnell Pumphrey in 2017. In that historic running back class, and they bypassed everybody else, and they went with the guy that led the NCAA at 2,000 some odd yards that year out of San Diego State. Where's Pumphrey now? Etienne was a very
Seattle
productive.
Did the same thing.
Rashad Penny, exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
So all I'm hearing is Joe Douglas sucks at drafting.
I wouldn't necessarily. No, I mean Barnett's a good defensive end.
It hasn't always blown up.
He hasn't produced like the sack guy that I think that Philly thought they were going
they drafted
to get.
him to be.
Yeah, exactly. He plays good run defense. He can get after the quarterback, but so can Brandon Graham. At a certain point, you still have to be able to drag the quarterback down, and that's where these two guys really struggle. But with Etienne, again, we know the college production. That's why I think Joe Douglas would value that. I don't know that he would value it to a point of the 23rd overall, but I think that sitting there at the beginning, he absolutely could. I mean, I'm of the mindset that I actually don't mind a running back in the first round if they're in the back half of the first round.
Yeah.
Because then they're not getting paid like a top 10 pick, because running backs really, I mean, I value good production, but again, running back production can be replaceable. But locking in that 5th-year option, being able to franchise them twice, you now get them for 7 years and then don't have that long-term commitment that most teams try to avoid with running backs. So I think if you're able to do that in the back half of the first round, which again, you now have an early second, they could decide to maybe trade back up into 29, 30, 31, 32, lock in that 5th year and still have a guy that fits what you want to do on offense And again, you're valuing the production that he came with from college. And we all know what Etienne was able to do in college.
I mean, if he's on their radar, they could even trade back from 23 for someone.
Potentially, yeah, absolutely.
There, so, yeah.
Absolutely.
Just based on recent history of what's happened in the draft. So,
gain a lot more draft capital there. There are only there's 2 teams in the NFC West that are picking in the first round, and they're not the Seahawks or the Rams.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Correct.
2 teams that just don't give 2 shits about money or draft picks. The Rams and the Seahawks. They don't care.
Also true. True.
Don't give any Fs at all. All right. Let's go into Naji Harris here. The just literal freight train of a human being, Naji Harris. I see Josh and Ryan have two different landing spots. In Josh, you have Pittsburgh. Ryan, you have Atlanta. John, where would you like to see Naji end up?
Those are my top 2 options for him. I want him in either one of them. Specifically, Atlanta is where I'd like to see, with them bringing over offense coordinator Arthur Smith, thank you, who, led Derrick Henry to what Derrick Henry was. So that's exactly what I would love to see. Pittsburgh would also be great, but Pittsburgh doesn't have the offensive line that they once did. So my dream scenario for him would be going to Atlanta. I'm trying to think if there's another one other than those 2 that I would really like for Naji. Miami, we see a lot of that mocked with the connection there. They were the coach at Senior Bowl, so they got a lot of FaceTime with him in person, even though he wasn't playing and working out. He was still there, and they were able to sit down and talk to him and stuff like that. They seemed very infatuated with him to the point that they could go first round and take him at 18 overall. So I think those are the 3 most likely scenarios, and I think all 3 of them would be good. I think that they understand that they need to take some pressure off of Tua in Miami, and one way to do that would be with a really, really good running game. So I think if they want to lean on their defense, which was good, and if they want to lean on a good running game, a big bruiser, do-it-all running back like Naji Harris would certainly fit the bill.
Just adding in that our buddy Jake Trowbridge says whoever is the lead back in Atlanta becomes top 10 by default, in his opinion. I mean, that could be fair. I am still suspect on Atlanta's offensive line. I think
that's what I was going to say. I'm starting to get a little iffy about that line.
Yeah, I think their line is awful. I think Naji Harris can make up for a bad line because he himself is an offensive lineman. So I think that helps in that standpoint. But if Naji Harris goes to Atlanta, I'm more excited for Calvin Ridley getting more one-on-one coverage, or potentially Julio Jones getting more in the mix, because now teams can't have 6 DBs on the field. They can really, maybe they can spare a 5th, but in reality, they need to have a more traditional defense because Naji Harris is back there. So, yeah.
I think you can say the same about Javonte Williams, too. I mean,
and that's what I was going to say.
Sure.
Both of those guys were 1-2 in college football last year and forced missed tackles.
Yep.
So, they have the ability to make up for suspect offensive line play. We saw Atlanta devote a couple first-round picks, I think it was 3 years ago, to offensive linemen. They've just struggled to stay healthy. And I think that's been the big issue with some of these, pieces that they have. But, I mean, with their cap situation, obviously they couldn't bring in any, the bigger name guys. So they need to spend draft capital to help protect Matt Ryan and pave the way for whichever running back it's going to be back there.
So one thing that I will say about Naji, I feel like sometimes he doesn't run as big as he is. And that's one thing that I noted, and one of the only reasons why I have him below Javonte in my rankings is sometimes he gets a little happy feet back there and he tries to do too much. It's like, bro, you're 6'1", 230. Go run the guy over. Just get downhill.
Hit him, damn it! Hit him.
Yeah,
it's almost like he's doing a prime Pittsburgh Steeler Lev Bell impression, where he's just waiting for everything to develop. It's like, bro, you don't have to wait, especially in college.
No, just go get after it. So
wasn't that kind of a knock on Saquon too when he came out? He's big enough?
He was a big play guy. Like it was either a negative or it was an 80-yarder.
Yeah,
like,
and that's why
every time.
That's why the comparison to Barry Sanders was astronomical, because he could do a lot of the things that Barry could, and it was, like you said, John, -2 or an 80-yard touchdown.
We also did see this early out of Derrick Henry's career in the NFL. The first couple of years were like that. It's like,
it was rocky.
Do you understand how big you are? Like, just go knock someone to the ground, put their face into the earth. Like, just go. And then he finally kind of developed that and learned, like, oh, I can just literally destroy these defenders. And I want Naji to get that mentality as he gets into the NFL, that he can just win.
Do you know who gave Derrick Henry that mentality?
I do. It was Arthur Smith was one of them, but there was also a conversation that he had with who was it?
I don't know. I was going to say Arthur Smith because Derrick Henry had his best 2 seasons in the NFL under Arthur Smith. From
John, I actually remember the story you're talking about, and I don't remember who it was either.
I don't know. All I know is from 2018 to 2019, Derrick Henry went from 4th round draft pick grade to Hall of Famer in just 1 season. That was what happened, and it was under Arthur.
Well, a lot of it too was, you give a big guy that many carries, he's gonna weigh down defenses, and that's exactly what happened.
100%. But to John's point, if Henry didn't have that mentality that I'm a dog and I'm just gonna run through brick walls and not leave a scratch on me, it could be a whole different story. And I think Arthur Smith helped him get to that point. Sure. And also, he had nuthead Taylor Lewan as a left tackle who is unbelievable. I love Taylor Lewan, but he is crazy in the head, which is exactly what you want out of your left tackle.
Yes, it is.
Ben Jones was a guard, I believe. He had Jack Conklin for a couple seasons, and Conklin was an All-Pro, I believe, his rookie year. So he had a baller. Derrick Henry is a baller offensive line in Tennessee, and still does even without Conklin there.
Well, I was gonna say the Titans did what we make fun of teams for doing, and it worked out well, and they built around their running back. They built that team. This is Derrick Henry's team, but you also have to have the right quarterback that's going to accept that, and a Ryan Tannehill is perfect in that situation. I don't know that Matt Ryan and Julio Jones are going to be ready just to hand those keys off right away either. So
right.
Well,
it's definitely going to be interesting to see how they shift their offensive philosophy, or if they shift it at all, because again, we're speculating they get a running back.
Who was it?
It was Eddie George.
Okay.
It was Eddie George who had a conversation with Derrick Henry and was like, get in there, come on, have that dog mentality and finish people.
Yeah.
He told me I needed to be more physical and finish runs, make the defense pay.
I know we have a lot of young listeners. If you haven't seen Eddie George versus Ray Lewis highlights, do yourself a favor and go look those up.
Remind me. Because I've seen the highlights, but Eddie George was the one who was dragging someone while his jersey was getting ripped. Is that the highlight I'm thinking in my head, or is that Earl
you're
Campbell?
Thinking of Earl Campbell.
Yeah,
Earl Campbell. Okay,
way back.
Yeah, I get those two. I get those two confused in that highlight package. I just want to make sure.
Eddie George was built like a Greek god. Those jerseys weren't coming off of his body.
That man was a beast.
Oh my
god.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Eddie George was that same mold of running back. He was 6'3", 235.
Yep.
He was a mammoth of a running back. So he and Derrick Henry, same team, same organization. He's like, hey, guess what? You're big. Go destroy them. And a light switch with him. And it was probably a lot to do with Arthur Smith as well. But I'm sure that Eddie George conversation is certainly.
You wanna go way back, kids. Go watch this guy, Jim Brown, the best football player ever, 6'2", 232.
Yep.
The OG Derrick Henry.
Also, possibly the best lacrosse player ever, but he decided to stay with football. So
interesting. He did go to Syracuse, which is now a unbelievable lacrosse school. So interesting. How about that? Ryan dropping tidbits here. I love that.
Fun fact
Jim
for
Brown. Yeah, Jim Brown was the original Derrick Henry. Just Everyone remember.
I don't know a lot about lacrosse, but I know I don't want Jim Brown running at me with a stick in his hand. Like, it's game over, bro.
See you in the parking lot. I'm out, boys. Yeah,
I wouldn't want Jim Brown at age 85 running at me at all.
Yeah.
Like, at all. I don't want him running at me at age 85. Like, the dude could still pound him.
I think my favorite Jim Brown story was after half a year, he tried to warn everyone that Trent Richardson was just a guy and that the Browns had made a huge mistake. And he caught so much shit for it, especially in Cleveland. Like, Cleveland radio destroyed him when he said it. And then it just turned out that he was so incredibly right. And it's like, oops. Like, maybe
I wonder how many apologies he got for that one.
Yeah. Maybe we should listen to the
he was brought, to be fair, the ultimate apology, he was brought on as an advisor to the Browns the very next season after Richardson busted. So.
Wow. Yeah.
So they decided to listen to Jim Brown. Never a bad idea.
Right.
Imagine
especially when it comes to running backs.
Yeah. Imagine not listening to the greatest running back of all time. Just no big deal. No big deal. All right. Last guy here. Number 1 on John's list, Javonte Williams. And John, I'll start here. We've talked about, I mean, there's really like 4 or 5 teams that truly probably need a running back to help them contend. And we've listed a few of these teams here. And the Jets, they're not getting a running back to contend. They're just, it'd be a nice toy that they would have. But where would you like to see Javonte Williams end up, John?
That one is tough because honestly, I haven't thought about it much because I don't care. Like, I'm kind of on that mold with him. Like he's
wherever he goes, you're happy.
He's going to be drafted to be a 3-down back. Like, unless you're telling me that he goes and sits behind Derrick Henry, like, that would suck. But he's going to get great draft capital and he's going to go be a stud. If Denver takes him at 40, he's going in to be the starting running back, and Melvin Gordon can have a seat. If it's, I don't know, Jacksonville at 45, that would be great. That would kill all James Robinson trees.
I was going to say.
Let my boy James Robinson live. Come on.
Like, listen, if Naji and Javonte Williams in some combination go to Atlanta or Pittsburgh, fantasy fans rejoice. Like, yes. I want one of them to be in either one of those two places.
Which means it's not happening, and we're sorry.
Probably not. So it's going to be one of those things where I'm really curious to see where he's going to go. I don't think anyone's going to take him round 1. I expect he definitely will go in the second round. I don't think he's getting to the third just because of his production and his measurables, and he's a physical freak and like everything about it, and his broken tackles stats and everything like that. So if he goes in the second round, I don't know. I mean, I'm doing a mock draft with roughly, there's some people that are taking on multiple teams, but we're doing an actual NFL mock draft, going through all the rounds, trading picks included, stuff like that. And in this mock, the Cardinals actually took him at 49 overall. And that would be great. It would give them a physical presence that offense doesn't have. So I think that it's going to be a surprise landing spot like that where many people haven't really thought about it, because I think everyone just kind of goes, okay, Atlanta, Miami, New York Jets, Pittsburgh, and list, and then people have just kind of stopped thinking past that. But it's probably going to be a surprise situation like this that's going to make people have to really think about it, like DeAndre Swift going to the Lions last year. No one really had that. We all thought they were going to roll in with Kerryon Johnson. So talent wins out. He's an incredibly talented running back that's still learning how to play running back, because this dude was a linebacker until his junior year of high school, and then he switched to running back. So he's still learning how to be a running back. And when you watch his film, the first guy never tackles him. Like, it doesn't happen. He's running, and you see one corner, like, coming towards him, and you're already looking, like, further down the field to wonder what's going to happen next, because you just know that guy's going to have a seat. Like, nope. Like, he can beat him with physicality, agility, speed, like, power. He can hurdle him. He can truck him. He can do whatever he wants. In my opinion, he's the most well-rounded running back in this class, and he can also catch incredibly well. If he didn't have Michael Carter in that backfield splitting time with him, he would have put up monster stats this year that would have been right on par with Najee's like per game stuff and his touchdowns and everything about it. So he's an incredible running back. I'm excited to see where he's going to land, and I kind of don't care where it's going to be. Like wherever he goes, I'm assuming that they're going to use him and use him a lot, and he's going to get opportunities. Talent wins. Like I don't really care that much about landing spot. Talent wins out, and I believe in his talent, and I think that he's going to be the best running back wherever he ends up.
I think you bringing up Arizona is an interesting point because one of the things we really complained about with Kenyon Drake this year was that he was just running into the back of his offensive lineman or running right into the front seven. Whereas with Javonte, when you watch his film, his lateral movement is amazing, and that's something you wouldn't see with him. And then obviously the missed tackles, things along those lines. And on a team like Arizona, where you already have to worry about so much, he could end up being just a beast right off the gate there. Mm-hmm. One of the great points you brought up is, I think a lot of people look at it as a negative that he split time, but having a college kid coming in with less tread on the tires, I think is just such an underrated thing. And I think it's actually better for him. One, he's learned to split time. If you're not Derrick Henry, you're probably splitting time in the NFL, at least a little bit to start. So it's not going to bruise his ego and things like that because it's something he's coming from already. I think it's going to work out great. I think he might be, and you brought this up, the most well-adjusted guy ready for the NFL right on day one, to where you have a great point. I don't know that I'd go as far to say he's putting Melvin Gordon out of a job yet, but you know more than I do. But it seems like he's probably going to come in and take whatever job he's at, and your enthusiasm, much like with Jonathan Taylor last year, has me super enthusiastic about him now.
Yeah, so. Like I love Javonte. He's not to the level of the guy whose autograph I literally have sitting over my shoulder, Jonathan Taylor, but Javonte is incredible. I love him, and I think the fact that he's still learning how to play running back is absolutely absurd. Like,
that's crazy.
Just
I did not know
crazy
that.
To me. Yeah. So I believe in his talent. If you went into a situation like at Denver with a Melvin Gordon is still going to have a role in that offense, but you have to also think about it. I think that Denver would actually make a lot of sense because this is the last year of Melvin Gordon's contract, and they just let Phillip Lindsay go. Yep. So if they are planning ahead and looking for something down the road, and they're looking at that, middle second round, early to mid, 40th overall, that's right around where Swift went.
Yeah, that's
Swift
really good.
Was straight up. It was right where JT went last year in terms of draft capital. I think JT was 37th. They could easily go running back right there at 40 to be planning ahead a year, as opposed to them having to make a decision on Melvin Gordon after this year and then having literally nobody in the backfield. So,
and not to mention
that would actually
chasing.
make a lot of sense to me.
I say, not to mention chasing a free agent that you're going to end up overpaying for Melvin Gordon or the next guy. So
I was going to say, and I think there's
contract. It makes sense.
They and Williams and Gordon, I think there are a lot of similarities in their game. I don't know how much you agree with that, John, but both of them are very talented as receivers. Both of them do know how to shed tackles. I think that Williams is, and again, I don't know how, hopefully this will translate to the NFL because I feel like with Gordon, it didn't, but the yards per carry and being able to grind out those extra yards, both of them know how to do that. But I think Williams is just, to me, he's just better as a runner. Like Gordon, I think only has like 1 or 2 seasons where he's averaged over like 4.3 yards per carry. Like it's not a ton. And Denver, they've really invested in their offensive line. And if I'm not mistaken, they'll get Jawan Jones back at right tackle this year because he opted out last year. So, they'll have some bodies up front, or hog mollies, as Dave Gettleman likes to call them.
Hog mollies, I love that.
They'll have some people there that I think can definitely help. And that's definitely a spot that I wasn't even looking at because I've been a Gordon fan for a long time, but personally, I like him in Miami. So
I pulled that out my ass as we were talking.
Yeah.
I had not given any prior thought to it, and then I just was talking. I'm like, oh, wait, hold on, this actually kind of makes sense, and I just kind of
and that's
talk
kind
yourself
of
into
like
it.
when you look at the second round last year, like all these guys, it was a very deep class last year, and you saw all these running backs going right there in the early to mid second round. It was like teams that were just going, and not all those teams needed a running back, is what we like to say. But we know the shelf life of running backs in the NFL. Just because a team doesn't need one doesn't mean that they're not going to draft one if they believe in the talent of that player. Just like you said, Javonte Williams is a talented player. Talent always rises to the top. So whatever team is going to draft him, whether you think it's a good fit or not, do not be shy about investing in him, whether it's in Dynasty or in redraft next year.
And what's interesting about Denver, again, I know John just literally pulled it out, but it makes a lot of sense there too, is the way they run their scheme, it's not a change of pace back. The backs do whatever the backs do. Whatever they're on the field to do that time, they're going to do it. Yeah, so having Gordon with a guy like Williams makes a ton of sense because they didn't use Lindsey just on passing downs or anything crazy like that. They used them both equally. And so him going there, while it's obviously going to bump Gordon down from where people might be looking at him right now, it's not going to kill Gordon, and it's not a terrible thing for Williams at all. So,
right.
Like Melvin Gordon's just bad. So,
well,
there we go.
He has a nose for the end zone.
We might be the only show that said.
And so does Javonte.
Yeah.
23 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So.
What were you going to say, Ryan?
We might be the only show saying to Denver, so we get a huge "I told you so." If it happens, we'll owe it all to John. So
clip it if it happens. Clip it if it happens.
A big "I told you so." Hey, we're going to be live for the NFL draft, so we'll say it right there.
And then what you need to do is you need to clip the part where I said I literally just pulled that out of my ass.
There you go.
And send me that clip too.
And then delete it from this show so that he can say he had it all along.
Yeah.
Yes. No one saw that.
All it's going to say is I literally pulled it out of my ass, and that it's going to
just that. It's literally going to no context.
No context.
Yeah. And we're just going to on
Phrasing,
Twitter. We're going to put it on Twitter.
Not doing phrasing anymore.
No. What do you think John's talking about? That's what's gonna happen.
Go.
And we're gonna let the people guess, and they're never gonna know unless you were someone listening right now. So feel lucky, ladies and gentlemen, because that's coming at you. No, it's not. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. I got a baseball.
We'll make time, Joe. We'll make time.
I got a baseball season to prepare for in 55 days that I have to make too much shit for. So that ain't gonna happen. It's a Christian thing if we want that to happen. All right. Who the hell else cares about any of these other schmucks?
Well, I wanted to ask John. You have Kylin Hill higher than I've seen anyone else have him. So walk us through that if you don't mind.
There you go.
Yeah, Kylin Hill's a guy that I'm really intrigued by. 2 years ago, if I remember correctly, he the SEC in rushings. Let me pull up his stats here in front of me. Kylin Hill. Oh, look at that. It's in my memory. That's great. So, yeah, in 2019, he had 1,350 rushing yards at 5.6 yards a tote. He then comes into his senior year, and he played.
He opted out after 3 games, didn't he?
After 3 games, he opted out. So he played 3 games. In those 3 games, he had 23 receptions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like he came back literally to say, hey, guys, I do know how to catch the football.
Yeah. I can catch. And he'd done it before. He had 22 catches in 18 and 18 catches in 19. So, respectable, but not like your 40-plus, college reception running back guys. But he comes back and goes, here's 23 catches. And I think he had, 9 in one of those games or something like that. It was ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah, the one game at LSU, he had 9 catches and only 7 rushing attempts. Because they just couldn't run the football. So they said, we're going to get you involved another way. Yeah.
Yep. So that's nice to see. I like a running back that has that versatility.
Yeah.
He runs with so much freaking passion and anger when he runs. I love the way that he runs because it's just so physical. It's great. He's prototypical size. He's 5'11", 210. Great. No concerns there about his size. His speed looked fine to me on tape. His physicality looks good. There are some issues at times with vision. There's sometimes where I think that he misses an opportunity to bounce and cut and stuff like that. But I like a running back that shows the physicality and shows the drive, his leg drive. His legs are always moving. He doesn't stop running until he's literally buried on the ground. So I think that he's someone that's going to be drafted well. I think that he's going to get day 2 rather.
Oh, okay.
Draft capital. I think he's going to get day 2 draft capital, maybe late second going into the 3rd round. I think Kylin Hill could go. He had a really good week during Senior Bowl week, which was great to see. A lot of times I think that helped him a lot because in a year where he opted out, there's opportunities where these front offices haven't seen these guys play in a really long time. So they were able to see him again in person and be like, yep, he's still in shape. Yep, he can, he's ready to go. And he did. He looked really, really good in those drills during that week. And I think he impressed during practices, which the practice means more than the game does to these front offices. So I like him. I think he's going to get day 2 draft capital. I think that he can do it all. I think he's got the size and the speed to do it all and prove that he can catch. So he's a well-rounded SEC running back that I think people are kind of asleep at the wheel on and could be one of those guys that comes out of the 3rd round and produces.
And if landing spots shake out, you kind of talking about your second tier, you could move him to 3 over Carter and Etienne?
If the landing spot I think is like perfect, and I haven't really thought much about what that's going to look like. I mean, Etienne would have to go to a terrible spot for, I think, at the end of the day, for Etienne to be below Kylin Hill. But right now, my rankings are kind of just off like film grades and what I like. So right now, I've got Kylin above Travis Etienne, but if Kylin goes to something that looks more like a committee and Travis Etienne goes to a San Francisco or, maybe even goes to the Jets or he goes to the Cardinals or something like that, then I think Etienne might slot in above Kylin Hill by the end of it.
The one thing I did like about
landing spot's going to be interesting.
The one thing I liked about Kylin Hill's game, he's a very willing pass blocker. And I a lot of people really don't focus on that. But we all know NFL teams do.
I was literally going to say NFL coaches do.
Yeah, NFL teams do because, hey, we got to protect our quarterback. That's the guy we're paying $40 million a year. And with a lot of these young running backs, they struggle with pass protection. And I think that was a lot of the reason why Travis Etienne went back. Like,
well, that's really what hurt CEH this year too.
And again, you didn't see ETH a ton towards the end of the year because he couldn't play on third downs. Like, sure, he's a great pass catcher, awesome. But I need you to stand in and block Patrick Mahomes. You can't do it. There's the bench.
I'm glad that you brought that up because I had kind of forgotten in my head that was a really big plus that I had in my notes on him, and I should probably have my notes, but I don't. But there was a rep.
Thanks for being prepared, John.
Hey, you're welcome, buddy. There was a rep in particular. All I needed is you to jog the memory there. There was a rep in particular during the Senior Bowl week where they were doing just blitz pickup drills, one-on-one, running back on the linebacker, and he stonewalled the dude. Like, his feet were planted, and it was like the sled drill, you know what I mean, where they pop up and forward. He did that to this linebacker, and the linebacker just stopped moving. Like, he just froze the dude.
Soul left body.
He did it over and over and over again during that week. And I think that you've got a guy that's 5'10", 5'11", 210 pounds. He has the size and the versatility to do everything, and he can catch, and he's a good pass blocker. This is someone that has the opportunity to get on the field a lot with that skill set at the next level. So
that makes me think Arizona could be a good spot for him.
Arizona would be great. I would love that fit.
I say and that's great info because, for even me who loves fantasy football, but I'm just not that into the college game. When I saw him that high on your rankings, I just didn't know a lot about him, and I haven't dug into him at all. But hearing that he could get on the field that quickly for fantasy, there's no more important ability than availability, and he's going to be out there, and so that's big. So,
well, another thing that's great about a running back like that is when he's standing back there next to the quarterback in shotgun on third down, you don't know what he's going to do because you don't know if they're keeping him into block or they could motion him out and have him run a route, or he could run one out of the backfield. Like, he becomes a chess piece back there on third down, as opposed to where it's like, okay, well, this running back, when he's in there, we know he's just blocking.
We know what's happening.
Catch, or you know what I mean? So the versatility of what he can do on third down, I think, will be interesting. And he's big enough and strong enough as well to run between tackles and be successful early down as well.
Well, yeah, and you brought up a good point because not just that, it also might discourage the defense from even sending a blitz, which is going to do other things for the offense because they know he'll pick it up. So, I mean, there's a lot to go into that from a real-life NFL perspective where he could end up being a huge chess piece, like you said.
Yeah.
The last guy I want to talk about is my favorite guy on the list, the 2020 MAC Offensive Player of the Year. One man known for putting up 8 touchdowns in one single game. The greatest Buffalo Bull to ever put on the uniform.
Oh, that's bold. Do you know who else went there?
Khalil Mack. I'm very aware of who went there. I'm very aware. Sure. I'm very aware of who went there. I know what I said. Jarrett Patterson. I know what I said. Jarrett Patterson. Averaged 7.6 yards per carry. He played in 6 games and had over 1,000 rushing yards. Yep. Thoughts, John? I love Jarrett Patterson.
I love Jarrett Patterson. Here's the deal. I have concerns. One was competition level in the MAC. Another one, he didn't catch a single pass this year, which is very concerning. That was apparently schematic. I've actually been able to talk to Jarrett Patterson and I did an interview with him, and I actually, not like name dropping or anything, but I've been able to talk to him a little bit over the last month or two while he's going through his draft process. And he said that during his pro day that they did up there at Buffalo, he didn't do any running back drills. All that he did for the scouts was receiving work. That's all that he wanted to show them, was the fact that he can catch the ball. So
nice.
He's undersized. He came in at only 5'6.5" and 195. So he was listed at 5'8" and measured in at 5'6.5". So that's concerning. That's small. But the thing is, he's dense. Like, the dude is just built like a bowling ball back there. To me, he looks like Ray Rice in terms of their physical makeup and their mold and what they look like. Almost the same measurables, by the way. So he's a guy that I'm rooting for. I want him to be successful. I want him to be a MAC running back that gets drafted and is able to contribute early. There are concerns to me to his game. But other things that he did incredibly well. He does run with physicality. And I think that if he gets, a good NFL running back coach, that can help him, grow and polish out some of the things that he needs to work on. Because, let's be honest, whether we love Buffalo or not, there's a reason that the coaches that work there and not at a Power 5 school. He didn't have probably the best running back coaching, history in his career so far. So if he gets to a good running back coach at the next level and he gets somewhere that, can utilize him on early downs, I don't know. I don't know how high the ceiling is for the dude. I love his drive. I love how hard he works. He's committed as all hell to this. He's right where he wants to be from a height weight standpoint. He's like, this is what I am. 195 to 198 is my, that's where I feel the best. That's where I feel like I perform the best. So we'll see. I'm rooting for the guy. I have a hard time thinking he's going before day 4. Okay. But I would love to be pleasantly surprised because I'm rooting for the guy, and I think that he does have an intriguing skill set. It's just going to, I think him coming out of the MAC hurts him a little bit. I think he's going to get knocked on people's draft boards because of that. And I hope that someone's willing to, really take a chance on the guy and kind of groom him up and see what he can do.
You think he could be like a James Robinson 2.0?
Yeah,
that's tough because James Robinson has about 25.
No. I mean, I'm not saying in terms of size. I'm saying in terms of being able to come out of nowhere and
taking a team's
shock
workload.
The world, basically.
Well, let's be honest. With James Robinson, he had to have a lot go right for that.
Yeah, and everything went right.
Absolutely right, and it all fell into place in front of him. And things like that do happen every year. So if something like that happens and the chips fall right and the door is open to him to take over a starting role, I think he could. I don't know that he's going to give you RB1 fantasy numbers, but I think that he could be a surprise value. I mean, he's going in the 3rd or 4th round of rookie drafts that are going right now. And if he doesn't get high draft capital, that'll only fall further and he'll be a 4th round.
I was going to say, I feel like now people they know the 8-touchdown game. So it's like, I know this name. I'll snag this guy.
Right. And by the way, his coach pulled him before he had an opportunity to get the 9th.
So stupid. He would have broke the record. So stupid.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
It's literally the Alvin Kamara story of college.
It was the Alvin Kamara story of college. So I'm rooting for the guy. I really hope that he does well. I do think that he's got some good strengths to his game. I really hope that he can demonstrate an ability to blitz pick up and get involved in the passing game at the next level. That would help him tremendously. So we'll see if that happens.
Last guy to talk about here, Kenneth Gainwell out of Memphis, which is a school that has been churning out running backs lately. And
RB2, baby.
Yeah, and Darrell Henderson, Tony Pollard, and Antonio Gibson, and just to go back to the OG for the 2000s, D'Angelo Williams. Just always got to give love to D'Angelo Williams when you talk about Memphis running backs because he's by far been the best in their school history. It's not even close. With Kenneth Gainwell, how are we feeling about him?
Oh, I like him. He's also a slightly undersized guy. 5'11", but 191. So I would have liked to see him, come in to be a little bit bigger than that. I'm not sure what he did at his pro day, though, because he opted out this year. So he might have put in some work on that front.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Player profile has him at, I believe, 201.
Oh, he cracked 200?
I think he cracked 200, yeah.
That's
201.
I like that more. Okay, Good for him.
Yeah, because I remember pre-pro day his BMI was under 30, and now it's at 30.6. If you believe in the BMI crap. So
if you're into that sort of thing,
the BMI says I'm overweight, so BMI can go shove its own finger up its ass. Like what? No, I'm not overweight. I'm fine. Literally says I am 5 pounds.
Yeah,
overweight.
Me neither.
So like everyone in this room, according to the BMI, needs to go on a diet because we're all overweight.
Oh, it's right.
I mean, we do, but that's neither here nor there.
Literally everyone in this room. I'm working on it.
So
John literally started a Twitter club.
Right?
I know.
Yeah, sure.
I know.
It's true.
FFFit Club, baby.
Yeah, and I mean, big shout out to all the other guys that are, and gals that have been involved in that from the beginning. I mean, it was, Ray GQ and Jordan and Troy. Those are like the three guys that were, really the beginning of it. And I just happened to put together a hashtag and it caught on. So it's been cool. It's been a lot of fun. Really good traction. Now we're doing stuff for charity, all that. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter if you want to learn more.
Nice.
Yeah, it's cool. So with Kenny G here.
I just went and confirmed real quick, John, because I know you were impressed. Marvin in his fantasy football article had the pro day measurements, and it was 5'11", 201. So
sweet, that's good. That's helpful. I like that he did that.
Wow. So player profiler has him 3 inches shorter at 5'8".
Interesting.
Oh, no, he's 5'11". So that BMI Twitter thing.
Wow.
So stupid.
Wow, player profiler. Do we know anyone over there? I might need to hit them up and be like, hey, you're 3 inches off. Are you sure you're not,
Yeah, you don't take 3 inches away from a dude.
They also have his best comparable as Ito Smith, and I just wanted to vomit.
Wait, hold it. You mean the best running back on the Atlanta Falcons last year, Ito Smith? I'm sorry.
Yes.
You mean RB1 for the Atlanta Falcons, Ito Smith? I'm sorry, Josh. Don't you dare put disgrace on his name. That was like RB1 Peyton Barber 2 years ago. So I'd like you to not shame Ito Smith.
I'm like tasting bile right now. It's like really disgusting. So anyways, that's enough of that.
Moving on.
So with Kenny, Kenny opted out this year, which is always an interesting conversation to have. Last year, in 2019, I'm sorry, I need to move the calendar. He opted out in 2020. In 2019, he's the reason why Antonio Gibson wasn't the starting running back. Okay. He was phenomenal. 231 carries at 1,459 yards. That's 6.3 per tote. So the production is there. 13 touchdowns. Would you like to know how much production he had in the receiving game also?
Oh, he was
51 catches.
Yeah, he was a dynamo in the receiving game.
And 610 receiving yards.
51 catches with a guy like Antonio Gibson playing with him. It's just insane. So.
Yeah. Yeah, he had over 2,000 yards from scrimmage and 16 total touchdowns.
Yeah, that'll play. That'll work. So he's very electric. I really like his skill set a lot. I'm intrigued by him to see what he looks like in game action since we haven't seen it for a year, which is tough. I think that had he played this year, and listen, I'm not going to knock any guy who decided to opt out because of COVID. That is entirely a personal decision that, they have their own reasons for making, and that's great. If they felt like it was what was needed for their safety, the safety of others, safety of loved ones, all that, more power to them. That's great. We saw a lot of top tier guys do it. No hard feelings. I think that if he had played this year, though, he would have cemented himself closer to the top of the running back group. And I think that he would have been, right behind those top three guys that we talked about. in terms of fantasy running backs coming in. I have no idea what to expect in terms of draft capital. If you told me that he gets drafted in the second round, I'd believe it because of the production that he put up in 2019. And I think there could be a team that's really enamored with him and decides to make that happen. If you told me that he goes in round 4, I could easily see that happening too. He might even slide to round 5. I don't know what this guy's draft capital is going to look like. So I'm very intrigued to watch him throughout the draft and see what capital he gets, which, kind of goes to tell you the level of commitment that they have from the team and the opportunity that they're expecting to give him. But man, I like him. He's so fun to watch when you put on the tape, and he can do it all. I like the fact that he bulked himself to 201. That's nice. That helps. He's good. He's just a good running back. I don't really know what else to say about it. He's an electric guy. Not saying that he's exactly like him, but there's a little bit of like Alvin Kamara to his game in terms of the receiving ability and the ability that he has in space is really, really good. So I think that he profiles to be heavily involved in a receiving attack wherever he goes.
To wrap up on Kenneth Gainwell, just go back to 2019, look at his stats. Yards from scrimmage, he was 4th in all of college football. The guys around him, number 1 was Chuba Hubbard. Number 2, Jonathan Taylor. Number 3, J.K. Dobbins. 4 was Kenneth Gainwell. 5, Travis Etienne. 6, Malcolm Perry from Navy, who all they do is just run.
Yeah.
And then...
True. Don't they still run the wing tee up there? Isn't that?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes. Old school offense, baby. That's why Army-Navy ends in like 6-3. It's like a baseball game. And then you have 7 was Jared Patterson. 8 was A.J. Dillon, 9 Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 10 Lynn Bowden Jr., 11 Zach Moss. And then you get into the receivers, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, guys like that. So, I mean, Kenneth Gainwell is in there with 2 guys who have already proven that they're going to be productive at the next level in Jonathan Taylor and J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah.
A guy in A.J. Dillon who has shown a little bit of what he can do. Clyde Edwards-Helaire clearly knows what he can do through the air at least. And then Lynn Bowden Jr., he went to Kentucky. I don't know why he was even drafted. Kentucky is not a good football school. But then you also have Zach Moss as well.
Bowden's versatile. Let's just put it that way.
Bowden can't run the football, but can catch. So when
I was going to say, he
was a quarterback.
He started looking good as a slot wide receiver in the last couple of games last season.
You know who else was a quarterback at Kentucky? Rajon Rondo. So I'm glad Rondo chose the right profession. I'm glad Rondo chose basketball. Because, if Rajon Rondo was also a quarterback at Kentucky, Lynn Bowden Jr. does not impress me whatsoever. Not in the slightest, at all. No way. Never. But Kenneth Gainwell is in literally the same conversation as Jonathan Taylor and J.K. Dobbins. So, there you go. Yeah.
It's
a good conversation to have.
And if you wanted to talk about the consensus top 3, Travis Etienne is behind him in total yards from scrimmage.
There you go.
So... he's kind of good, just to say the least. He's kind of
Yeah, but we all know the NFL is all about what have you done for me lately.
The opt-out concerns me. Like I'm curious to see what he does.
Yeah, I mean, look at Le'Veon Bell took a year off of football. I understand he went to the Jets next year, but it wasn't much of anything. Granted, he was a little older. How does that affect someone like Gainwell? Like when you don't have that consistent, I'm running into people and I'm taking these hits. How's that going to affect you after a full year of not having that type of contact? So,
yeah, but does Kenneth Gainwell have mad rap skills? That's the real question that we have to answer here.
He doesn't have a second career to fall back on. He needs this.
It's weird. Le'Veon Bell tried falling back in his second career, and that just shattered because he's.
I don't think he's done trying. I think his most recent IG post was "check out my new single." So
he still has fans. It's kind of sad.
That's loosely. The word is loose fan.
Fans. Yes. I mean, who would even know that he's still in football? I didn't play.
I was going to say
snap in the Super Bowl.
Who turns their head away from a train wreck? So they're all just watching.
It's very true. That's very true. All right. I don't have anything else.
I have one.
Oh, fine. Sure. Hijack.
Hey, I got one-on-one time with John pointing to the wrong direction. He knows what he's talking about. If you're a guy like me in Dynasty who traded away all your early picks, what are some other running backs outside of Jarrett Patterson who right landing spot or someone to watch that might fall later in Dynasty, 4th, 5th round guys?
Or even 3rd round guys, really.
My favorite one to list there is Elijah Mitchell.
Okay.
Out of Louisiana. The dude is a bruiser of a running back. He's big. He's physical. He runs quick. He's got good feet. Elijah Mitchell is like your poor man's Naji Harris. Like, he's big and he's physical with good footwork and can get a lot of stuff done. So he's someone that I'm intrigued by late. Some other guys that look like they're potentially falling. Trey Sermon is going to be really, really interesting. I just want to touch on him real quick because he's had a whole bunch of injury issues. He was, behind the depth chart in J.K. Dobbins, and then J.K. Dobbins leaves, and then they have this short COVID year with a couple injuries. But what he did down the stretch run into the college football playoffs was absolutely absurd. He broke records for most rushing yards in a 3-game stretch or something like that. It was crazy production. So when you're watching the film, it's you'll go from game to game and you'll be like, is this the same guy? One time he looks like he's, hobbled and not playing great. And then you put on another one and he looks like a, game breaker of a running back. So you could have someone in your league that's in love with Trey Sermon and takes him super early. Or if that person doesn't exist, he could easily be in the 3rd round of your rookie drafts. But an Ohio State running back that had very, very good what have you done for me lately production, I think that he's going to get decent draft capital. And because of his size and his skill set, after those big guys up top, like Javonte and Naji Harris, Travis Etienne, Kylin Hill's got good enough size. After that, he's kind of the last one other than, bottom of the barrel, like Elijah Mitchell, who I'm saying is a very late pick. He's one of the only guys that has the size and the framework and the ability that can profile as a 3-down running back in the NFL. So
real quick, John, Sermon was at Oklahoma before last year. He wasn't behind Dobbins at all at Ohio State.
So so he went to Oklahoma.
He split 2019 with Stevenson and then transferred to Ohio State.
I'm sorry, I was thinking of someone else there at Ohio State, but he transferred because they stuck with Ramondre Stevenson. So he went because there was a job opening basically after J.K. Dobbins went down. Sorry about that. Confused the two. I'm thinking of Master Teague is who I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
So Trey Sermon went over there because there was a job opening basically. And then,
him and Teague kind of
Yeah. So what he did down the stretch run in particular was really prolific in terms of production. And I think that he's got people's attention. So I think that he could get decent enough draft capital to be interesting as well. But
and that's another guy that
are interesting late guys.
And Sermon's another one that, we talked about with Javonte, knows how to share carries. That's what Sermon did. I mean, even at Oklahoma, 2019, he split carries with Stevenson. In 2020, he split carries with Master Teague. And that's why, when you look at their stat sheet, nothing really pops. They didn't have any 1,000-yard rushing seasons. The amount of carries is kind of okay, where's the breakout? People talk about breakout age all the time, and I feel like it doesn't really it doesn't shine a light on it with running backs the way that it does maybe wide receivers.
Yeah,
right.
I had Trey Sermon. I'd like to see him in Arizona for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. The familiarity with Kyler Murray already, and then the fact that he's not a great pass catcher kind of leaves some room for Chase Edmonds to still be involved for fantasy football purposes. I think it'd be an interesting fit.
Well, it seems like they want to run that sort of change of pace style anyway versus an interchangeable setup that we've talked about earlier.
Trey could be one of those guys to just before we go. Trey Sermon could be one of those guys where if the Steelers don't want to invest super early in running back because they have other needs like offensive line and secondary and stuff like that, and even pass rush after free agency, they had a whole bunch of guys leave. If they want to go other positions early and then address running back later, Trey Sermon to Pittsburgh is really, really interesting, and one that some Pittsburgh fans that we all know that I've talked to have said they were like, that could be an interesting fit, scheme-wise and what they do well, kind of carry the lunch pail type of running back.
Josh had me pulling some threads for our Trey Sermon post, and I didn't realize there was like a whole Twitter, not even just Ballblast. There's a whole Twitter following of Trey Sermon to the Steelers to the point there were actually GIFs Trey Sermon to the Steelers already. I was like, good Lord.
Are there really?
Yeah, like when I put in his name to search for a GIF, I was like, yeah, it's crazy. So.
Wow. Hey, Ryan, check the Dynasty League. I just sent you a trade for a third round pick. Just real quick while we're talking. Just go check it out. I think it's fair. I think it's a very fair trade. Basically just selling off my entire team. So I'd like
I know you're trying.
You would literally be left with.
I mean, he's done okay selling off his whole team so far, Ryan. So.
You'd literally be left with a 3rd round pick and a 5th round pick this year. So really went all in on 2020. But all right.
Hey, I won the trophy.
I won the championship. So.
Sitting there behind me that I got to take to Ohio in August. So
there we go.
There you go.
Yeah, don't ask me how I finished in that league. The past since 2017, whenever we started. All right. I think that's. Are we done now? Is that?
Yes,
that's
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. From the peanut gallery to the left of me on screen. That's you, Josh.
oh yeah, okay, sure.
No, I didn't. Wow. Hello. Okay. You don't even. Nope. We're done. We're gonna end on the high note that Josh forgot what left and right was and wasn't paying attention at all. And we're just gonna bid farewell.
Everything's backwards, dude. Like I don't forget.
It is.
And we're gonna bid farewell and a thank you to.
Thank you, Jon
Helmkamp.
Yes,
for
thank you.
What is
as always
8th time on the show or something? You've been here. We have you on 2 months.
27th, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
You
start paying me. That'd be great.
Wait a second. Are we paying people?
I was about to say, let us make some money first.
Yeah, we need to make a little money. Sadly.
Thanks for having me on, guys. It's always good to hang out and talk football with you guys.
Always appreciate it. And since you have rebranded since the last time you were on the show, and you're obviously in much different avenues, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, so on Twitter, at Jon Helmkamp, it's that thing right there under my face. My writing and all that stuff is over on Deadspin.com. I cover really a variety of sports topics, not
everything.
Football. Yeah, I cover a lot, kind of, when they pop up, but yeah, I cover a lot. It's fun. And then that's about it. You can hit me up on Twitter, whenever. Always happy to talk about rookies or trades or whatever. So
feel free.
Jon won't hit on it, but
club, man.
Well, I'll say Jon won't hit on it, but we're a very socially aware show. Jon's done a lot of really cool articles based on race at the quarterback position. I really enjoyed your Dwayne Haskins article from, I think it was like February, right when you were starting over there. But check his work out. It's really unique. It's not your typical fantasy football shit that the rest of us are saying. So check his work out.
Yeah, it's nice having a platform that allows me to kind of explore those avenues and be able to talk on the social aspect of things and, a lot of different race issues that we continue to be seeing right now, even though we shouldn't be. And it's just getting annoying and tiresome. But, that's why there are people in positions like the one that I'm in, is to be able to call out that shit when we see it, so that hopefully this stuff starts going away. So I'm going to keep doing that.
Good on you.
Yeah. And to wrap it up with one of our guy who ran the show, our Saturday shows in the season, Sean said he's unbelievably excited for the NFL draft this year, all thanks to Dynasty. And Sean, guess who gets to guide you through the entire 2021 NFL draft?
Yes.
These guys, because we'll be live for the entire thing. So while you're watching the draft, you can also hear us chime in and all those different things from a fantasy aspect and also from a real life aspect, and how these guys will fit in. We even chime in on how offensive linemen will help these guys, even though offensive linemen give you 0 points. And I will chime in on IDPs because I'm the only one that can do that. Ryan kind of can now.
I only won an IDP charity championship this year.
I deserve 1/14 of the credit. I deserve 1/14 of the credit because I helped you in 1 week. So 1/14 of the credit. Thank you.
That's right.
All right. Thank you again, Jon. Always a pleasure. Love having you on. Never a dull moment. This is the quickest show we've ever had with him on. So
probably
we're hitting our groove.
Yeah, kudos to us at this point. All right. Make sure that if you missed, what was it, yesterday now,
yeah.
correct?
Tuesday,
right?
yeah.
Yesterday, if you're listening on the podcast, it was Tuesday, April 6th. We dropped the latest episode of Speakeasy. Linda, the new host, welcome Cooter Doodle. Still the greatest name on Twitter. I laugh every time I look at it. Also,
because we're all 12.
Yeah, right.
Which Linda actually addresses on the show right away.
Right?
Is that
Great.
The name is what drew her in.
Yeah,
So.
immediately. But it is exclusively on our YouTube page, so you can check that out, Club Fantasy FFL. Go ahead and check that out there. As I mentioned tonight, too, along with John's rankings, we have Zach Smith's rankings, or his rookie rankings, which are live over on clubfantasyffl.com, so you can check them out there. He'll have updates leading up to the draft, so you can follow him on Twitter at FFWutangForever. It's EVAH, like he's from Baston. So make sure you don't miss any. I laugh every time I see that because it's just, I don't know, it's a funny name. And then next week, of course, we did quarterbacks, running backs. You can guess where we're going here. Next up is the wide
offensive
receiver.
lineman. Oh,
yes. Actually, weirdly enough, the kicking staff is where I wanted to go. Placeholder. Hold on.
Really,
long
really
snappers. Long snappers. The real MVPs of the special teams unit. The long snappers. As we dive into wide receivers, we're going to talk with Christian Williams, a Devi writer over with Fantasy Pros, and the director of operations at The Cut, which is at The Cut FFB on Twitter. So be sure to join us next week for an awesome show with another loaded wide receiver draft class. Just like the running backs are loaded, it is another loaded year for wide receivers as well. Get it in while you can.
It tells me that they're going to get overdrafted because of the success of last year.
Yep.
Correct. And what this tells me is, from what I've heard, get it in now because 2022's skill position draft class isn't as good as 2021's and 2020's. I could be wrong, but from what I've heard, it is just simply not as good. So enjoy it while you can this year, ladies and gentlemen. Always remember, defense wins championships, offense wins fantasy football. You can follow Club Fantasy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Club Fantasy FFL. The URL is clubfantasyffl.com. One last time, you can follow John at Jon Helmkamp, Josh at the One Hunsonian, Ryan at The Fantasy 5, myself at Joe_Zolo. Always remember, defense wins championships, offense wins fantasy football for the second time tonight. Join us next week to dive into the wide receiver class with Christian Williams, a Devi writer with the Fantasy Pros, and the director of operations at The Cut. We will see you next week.